Joining me on the broadcast is Dr. Anna Matvieva. She's a senior visiting research fellow at the King's College from London, and Mark Sleboda, international affairs expert and security analyst based in Moscow. Going to Dr. Matvieva first. Dr. Matvieva, an interesting day in Russia. What do you foresee? It's already a foregone conclusion that Vladimir Putin will win this election hands down. But what implications does this election have for Russia?
There are two implications. One is there is a competition who is going to be the second. And we have a very interesting new candidate from the Communist Party, and he is doing actually quite well in polls. Not to challenge Putin, but to shape agenda towards more kind of leftist values, towards more socially oriented state. And that's something, if he actually comes second, would be a significant shift in Russian politics. The other thing is that we all believe that it is going to be the last term of President Putin. So that would be the term when he will try to make his achievement more sustainable.
Right. And now going to my other guest, Mark Sleboda. Good afternoon, Mr. Sleboda.
Good afternoon.
Is this going to be Putin's last term? He's constitutionally bound to stand down after 2024. But do you actually foresee him doing that?
Yes, of course. Putin has been very fastidious in observing the Russian Constitution and constitutionality throughout all of, this is his fourth term. He's, if elected today, it will be his fourth term, much like Angela Merkel in Germany was just elected to a fourth term as Chancellor of Germany. He has always been very fastidious about observing the Constitution, and I don't expect that to change. More than likely, towards the end of his term, he will be looking to groom certain people that he would like to see as his successors.
So, Mr. Sleboda, these elections, you feel they are going to set the stage for a discussion and deliberation on Putin's successor?
Oh, absolutely. It will certainly set the stage. And the other main political parties, the two main opposition parties in Russia, are not actually pro-Western liberals. They are a fringe minority. Your broadcast early mentioned Alexei Navalny. He's a fringe pro-Western candidate. He's often inflated in the Western press. He also has far-right and xenophobic views, which is why he's not popular with very many voters, besides being barred for two fraud convictions, including of a French cosmetics company, Yves Rocher. But the main two opposition parties are the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, which is probably the largest, which has a new candidate, Grudinin, and the soft nationalist Liberal Democratic Party of Russia with Zhirinovsky. They will be positioning themselves for the future the Duma elections, where they would hope to gain seats to push their agenda domestically. And also they'll be looking to put forward new candidates to challenge the dominant party, United Russia, for the next election. And Putin himself will be looking, to, at least towards the end of his term, towards grooming a successor. He may even stand down at some point and allow his chosen successor to take office before the election. That is what Boris Yeltsin did with him all those years ago, back in just before 2000.
Requesting you to hold that thought, Mr. Sleboda, and going back to Dr. Matvieva. Dr. Matvieva, the fact that Kremlin is eyeing a 70% voter turnout and is eyeing 70% of the vote share. Now, a high voter turnout like that, would it likely cast a shadow on the poll process itself? Would it hamper the credibility of these polls in any manner?
No, not at all, because the leadership is fairly realistic. They do not need to pretend that there was 100% turnout, that there is a loyalty of all Russian people. They will be quite happy to have a realistic turnout. Moreover, if they will present some very inflated figures, it will actually make them look quite silly. They are going to be quite technical, procedurally clean. I would imagine that they would be fairly few allegations of some kind of foul play, but there will be some, so we would expect some court cases here and there, which is quite normal to show that these elections actually had some real contestation. But I do not think that Putin thinks now that he can be a president representing all people. He's a president representing majority of people. I think he already has got accepted that some people would not vote for him, that some people have different agendas. And I would say people who can really contest elections in more kind of rigorous manner, if there was more democratic procedures in Russia, would be, and I agree with your other speaker, that it is more nationalist, more isolationist, more anti-Western, more right-wing, that kind of spectrum.
Also, so, Dr. Matvieva, with the kind of diminished opposition we are witnessing in Russia, and with the victory of Vladimir Putin a foregone conclusion, do you see any space at all for opposition parties or opposition leaders in Russia now?
Yes, but that opposition would come not from pro-Western circles, because Putin is more in the middle. The real opposition to Putin would come from more nationalist, more isolationist crowd, people, for instance, who went to fight in Donbass in eastern Ukraine, people who have that kind of Russian world ideology. So the West should be very careful if they want to have more kind of freedoms and more chances for oppositions. That would be the people who will benefit from that.
Requesting you to hold that thought, Dr. Matvieva, and going back to Mark Sleboda. Mr. Sleboda, is Vladimir Putin a people's leader, or is he just managing to stay on in power with an iron hand?
Well, I think that's kind of an absurd question, to be frank. I mean, the opinion polls, whether they are domestic, government, opposition, Western, all show that he has the approval of over 70% of the Russian people. If you try to say that that's not genuine, that's essentially denying the agency of the Russian people as a whole, basically because you don't like what they like. But he is fairly representative, not just his policies, but the political values that he promotes. Sociological polls regularly show that that's what the Russian people want in a leader, and that's what he's given them. In fact, I would say the opposite. Vladimir Putin has changed quite significantly since his first election back in the early 2000s, when he tried to reach out to the West and was seen as a fairly liberal pro-Western candidate who even at one point wanted Russia to join NATO. I think both a combination of the Russian people's desire for what they want in a leader and events, particularly actions by an aggressive hegemonic West, have forced Vladimir Putin into the role and to the political positions that he has today. I would add that I think this much ballyhooed, rumored 70% turnout, 70% support. I think that's if it's real, then it's optimistic. I would be looking more at a 65% turnout and 65% support for President Putin.